Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting video out in the woods. Today we're going to be talking about pack axes and hatchets. Okay, when you think about the axe, you think the outdoorsman, the woodsman. It's pretty much the symbol of the outdoors kind of guy. That is a cool pose, ain't it? So anyway, we're going to be talking about axes today because axes can contribute to making your fingers or your toes shorter if you're not careful. Okay. Now, not everybody carries a full-size axe. Matter of fact, nobody that I know of carries a full-size axe. There might be some reasons, but for the most part, we carry pack axes and hatchets. Okay. So real quick, I'll just go over the difference. There's going to be a few really unseen before tips in this video, and then there's going to be some basic tips in here just for basic axemanship, because it's an important thing, because the axe is more dangerous in the woods than a bear. So let's get on with the video. Now, the differences in these axes are generally the length of the handle. Not only is the length of the handle different, but the heads are just plain bigger or smaller. They're a lot bigger on the full side. This is an old antique Sager. Warren Axe and Tool Company, Warren, Pennsylvania. This one belonged to my granddad. I really don't like to carry it out much, but this, unlike a modern axe, this thing will keep an edge like a razor blade. Okay. Now, a pack axe is generally about a foot shorter. Okay. Now, on a pack axe, I think Morse Kohansky says that a pack axe is from your armpit to the end of your hand. Okay, that's a pack axe. Okay, and they have the double bit and they have the single bit, and I think they're generally like the handle length's like 26 inch to 28 in general, but they can vary as much as 24 to 32. Okay, so that's the pack axe. It may have other names, and then of course the little short ones are the hatchet. This one belonged to my granddad too. This was a plumb. Hatchets will get you in trouble if you don't know how to use them. That is the reason why I use machetes so often. But I'm going to go over a few tips and tricks and then some safety aspects and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. Now, walking with an axe, when you carry an axe, basically, my word of advice, always keep it in the leather sheath. Good, thick, heavy leather sheath. Okay? That way you can carry it anywhere you want. You can carry it in the classical over the shoulder style, or you can carry it like a lot of people do. They will carry it by the head. They'll carry it by the head just like this when they're walking along, and some people will carry it by the handle like this. Okay? Now, if you don't have a sheath, or if you prefer to not have it in the sheath, my advice, don't ever walk with it like this. Because people talk about tripping in the woods, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, it ain't like I trip all the time. There's not a bunch of brush and vines and things. Well, the thing is there's no saying about that. There's no saying about accidents and safety. And it's, I didn't mean to get hurt. I didn't mean to get cut. I didn't mean to trip, okay? Well, the other coin of that is, did you mean not to? Did you mean not to trip? Did you mean not to slice your fingers off? So that's a little something to remember. But anyway, when you've got one unsheathed, don't walk with it like this. Okay, it's not a good thing. And some people, they think for some reason that if you hold the handle this way, they think that if you walk along with it like this right here, that you're safe. Not necessarily, because you could trip and it could land somewheres right here on one of your main arteries, which would be horrible, because if you did that in the middle of nowhere, you might bleed to death. So my wild guess would be is if you're going to walk with it unsheathed, hold the handle so that these things right here are down towards your feet, so that if you trip, it won't hurt too bad. And always wear leather boots if you can when you're messing around with an axe or any kind of cutting tool. Okay? There's no excuse for that. No excuse whatsoever. Not even hiking shoes. And the other rule of thumb is wear boots whenever you're out chopping and and any kind of bushcrafting with any kind of cutting tool. The only excuse you should ever go barefooted is if you're filming a Discovery communications show. I had to throw that in, Cody. All right, another little bit of a little jewel of information is when having an axe out in the woods, if you're going to actually be felling a tree, which there's a difference between a felling edge and a splitting edge. A felling edge is more of a sharp point, and a splitting edge is more of an angle like this. Okay, so what I've done with mine is, since I have two edges in the classic woodsman style, I reprofiled one edge so it's a lot thinner for chopping and felling, and I left the other end alone and just sharpened it. And what I did is, on this end here where it's stamped Condor, I left it factory, and that way I can remember in case I can't necessarily look at it and tell, but where it's stamped Condor, I left it alone just like Condor had it. And then where it says El Salvador, that's where I reprofiled it. Okay. Now, talking about felling, another trick is you use lanyards on machetes to keep it from flying out of your hand. Well, a lot of times you'll see a few woodsmen that they have a little tiny lanyard like this. Okay. Now, the idea behind that is if you're ever on a hill, or you're ever unsure of how many branches are on a tree and you don't know which way it's going to fall, a very good way of seeing if a tree is leaning just barely in one way or another, because sometimes that can spell the difference between having a tree kick back on you. But what you do is, what that little lanyard is for, is it's so that you can use your axe as a plumb bob. So see, what you do is you hang it from your thumb, and the weight of that axe will hold it perfectly straight up and down. Okay, and see, that way you can hold it against a tree, and you can see the slight differences that you can't pick up with your eye. You'll see which way that tree is leaning. Okay, and that could come in handy one day. So, little tiny lanyard on the end is all you need. See, there's a good example right there. See that tree right there? It's a slight angle. You know, not necessarily perfect example, but the basic idea is you take that axe, and that axe is perfectly straight, and you're just going to ease it over to your line of sight. And see, the axe is perfectly up and down because the head is holding it down. And see, now I can visually see now, even though I'm on a hill, I can see which way the tree is leaning. Ain't that neat? Now, another little trick is, this is one of them things to where I'm always honest with you, and I'm always talking to you person to person. And those of you that have been camping, you have the same experience as I have. Now, how many of you have sat down your axe or leaned it against a tree and lost it? Not been able to find it, okay? Well, there is a cure for that. And it's also very helpful for scouts that have their totem chip or their whittling chip, or, you know, now normally scouts will have a safe area where they're the only ones allowed in there to use the axe. But then if you're out in a campsite or whatever, they really lose axes. So the cure for that is a carabiner with an orange shoelace. Everybody knows I'm a big fan of shoelaces, but what you do is basically whenever you set your axe down or you lean it against a tree, you got this obnoxious bright orange thing on it. And it's also so that for those of you that enjoy tripping in the woods and falling over everything, you'll know it's there and you won't trip over it or stub into it. Or if you happen to have Cody Lundeen in your campsite, I got you twice, Cody. So, if you have Cody in your camp, or somebody barefooted or wearing sandals, they won't trip into it. But basically what you do is you take the carabiner off and you either attach it to your belt or attach it to your shirt. Okay, come over. Do your thing with an axe, and then when you set it down while you're processing your firewood, toting it off, then you take your carabiner back and you hang it back on the handle of your axe. Ain't that neat? Let's get down to the nuts and bolts of what an axe does. An axe chops, okay? So, I'm going to say a few things about the differences between a full-size axe, which you probably won't be carrying, and the pack axe, okay? Some people say that the handle on a pack axe is too short and it hurts their back to swing it. But, I mean, there's actual science behind it. Not only is it smaller to pack in, but it's actually safer to use in a way. So what we're going to do here now, let's say you got a log on the ground right here, all right, and you're going to be chopping on it, okay? Probably you've all heard it, some of the advice you've always been given is don't take an axe and chop straight from the top, okay? For one thing, it takes more effort to get through a log. You need to cut from each side, okay? Also, I don't know about where you're at, but here I am up in the hills of Georgia. There is rocks everywhere, okay? And there may be rocks underneath here. And I don't want to swing into the mud and hit a rock because, you know, you hit a rock with this, game over. You're not only going to just about have to sharpen it, you may have to reprofile it, okay? So, now, let's talk about this here. You got about a foot difference in the handle height right here, all right? If you are chopping and you have this, okay, your feet are generally going to be either on the log like this, and you're going to be swinging, and that length is inherently right here near your feet, okay? Now, you can put your feet behind the log and put your toes up against it, which is good. But it seems like you've always got the top of this axe hitting you in the stomach. All right? So, with the shorter length here, if you've got your legs spread out real far, I know you look like an idiot, but if they're spread out real far, then it seems like this axe head is going to be the perfect distance for swinging, okay? And now if you had this extra handle coming out, every time it came and hit you in the stomach, it could make the axe blow or veer off to each side. You wouldn't have your blows being as aimed directly. So what you want to do with that, preferably stand on the log, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the side that I reprofiled for chopping and chop away. And then what I'll do is I'll move to the other side and chop the other side. And see, that way you've got your log chopped and you never even touch the ground with your axe. Now the reason that I sawed this square on the ends is to make a point, okay? Because you have a lot of the old-time woodsmen that they're like, or people that are trying to be like the old-time woodsmen, and they're like, I'm going out in the woods with nothing but an axe, okay? All right, well, when you do that, let's say you're going to be splitting your wood after you chop it, okay? Let's find a decent place right here. We're going to make a nice little flat. So let's say we've got this nice little flat. We got this little piece of wood right here. See if I can get it stand up right. And see, it's even hard to do with it sawed. Okay, I have this nice little piece of wood right here. All right, sawed on the ends. So what am I going to do now is I'm going to take my hatchet, or I'm going to take my axe. Well, let's see. Let's take the splitting end of this. Let's take the splitting end of this, okay? And I'm not going to touch it. My hands are nowhere near the axe. All right, so I'm going to hit it just like that, and I don't have to touch it. All right, now, in reality, when you have a piece like this that you have chopped, there is no way that you can hold it right there like that. No way. So what are you going to do? Are you going to take and hold it with one hand? And are you going to have this axe come down on it? Because if you miss, you could lose a thumb, you could lose a finger, or you could cut right in here. Just like everybody saw on either the first or the second season of Alone, how the woman hit, and as it bounced, it came over here and cut her and gave her an injury that lasted like a year. So, you never want an axe A heavy hunk of sharp metal, you never want it coming down anywhere near your hand. Not a hatchet, and especially not a pack axe, because with a pack axe, if you choke up on it, the end of that thing could tend to hit something over here and make your blow veer off. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways of taking care of that. Now, one of them is that you can take and you can start. Now, this wood may not split because of the knots, but you can take the axe and you can hold it like this, and you can hold it just like that and come down like that, and you can continuously beat it like that and then split the wood off. Now, this wood's not dry, it's kind of rotten, so it didn't split good, but I may get some more wood and show you here in a minute. But basically what I wanted to show you is how the ends of them were. Okay? Now, I have two more tricks for this that I'm going to show you. Now, this is a better example of what I was talking about, because this wood is dry. But what you want to do is you want to take it like this and give it a hit and then crack it right open. And see, especially if the wood's already got a crack in it, that's a good way of doing it. Alright, and that's one way of doing it. Now, another good way of doing this, another trick for splitting, if you have a double bit axe, it doesn't work with a single bit, okay? But if you have a double bit axe, remember, instead of having this big, sharp, heavy hunk of metal coming down on the wood or your hand, how about you have the wood come down on the axe, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm probably going to get some flack for this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my felling end and stab it into a good solid piece of wood. Alright, so now what I've got is I have the felling end stuck in this wood, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this piece that's got this uneven end on it, and I'm going to set it on top of the blade. Now, if I hit my hand with this piece of wood, it's going to hurt, but it ain't going to cut me open, alright? Because the idea is if you've got an axe, coming down on that wood, you're depending on your hand moving away fast enough from that blade, okay? But you've still got a heavy hunk of metal coming down. So if you have this sitting right here on this, all you got to worry about is getting your hand out of the way of this piece of wood. See? Nothing to it. See, I'll get you a little bit better view of it. Okay, I've got the axe stabbed right here solidly in the log. The ends of my wood have been chopped because I don't have a saw with me. And there's no way of standing this up and no way of splitting it without me having my hand right here in the way of the axe. So, you just pick a spot, set it on it. Let me turn this around like this so you can see it like that. And see, I don't have anything to worry about. If I accidentally hit my hand, it's not like I'm going to sever a tendon. That didn't work as good. You have to kind of aim it sometimes. And there you go. And there's your split wood. And then when you get done with it, be sure and remove the axe so that you don't fall on it. Alright, now that splitting trick works good for if you're carrying a double bit axe. Okay? If you're carrying a single bit axe, that is totally different. Okay? Because you can't stab one end into the wood. So what you want to do is you want to find you a piece of wood, not completely rotten, but it's got a nice split down the middle. Alright? Alright, so what you're looking for now is a piece of wood that's about 2 feet long, possibly 3. Okay? And then you're going to do that other trick where you're going to stick this in the crack, okay, just like so, and give it a whack. So now that you've got your two pieces split, the next thing that you want to do is you want to put a notch here and a notch here. Alright? So I'm going to hold it up just like this. And I'm going to put a little notch in it. I have a little flat on the end. Take this one, lay it over just like that, and put a notch in this end. Okay? Stand it up. Alright? I think you're already getting the basic idea. Split it and notch each end. Okay? Next step, grab you some paracord and lash it around the middle. Now usually what I do is I'll orient them so that I know that I've got the flats lined up. And what you can do with them is you can just turn them this way to where they're opposite each other. And then just take the cord and flip it over like so. Pull it through. Flip it over again. Pull it through. Then you have a Prusik knot. Okay? So what you want to do with it then, just wrap it around one more time. Let's see. Make a loop. Kind of hard to explain. And pull through one side. Pull it tight. Then wrap around in opposite directions each end. So I'm wrapping in one way because I made a loop and fed it through the loop. Once you've done that, then all you got to do how'd that happen? Wait a minute, it didn't work right. Back it back up. You're supposed to be able to make a loop through this one and feed through here. Yeah, and that's how you do it. You pull it back through that way so that you're going in opposite directions. I know that's confusing. So see, now I'm coming out in opposite directions of either side. It takes a little bit of effort. And then all you got to do is just tie it off like that. Okay, any kind of knot you want, no big deal. And then what you can do there is then you can spread this thing out. Spread it out. It's going to be tight. You may have to loosen it up. And that is how you're going to hold your wood. Let's go try it. Now let's try this little jewel out. Other end. It's got the flats on it. So what we're going to do is you can do this two different ways. What we're going to do is we're going to put the wood in there. And what we're doing is, since I've got the flats on it, I can very easily hold it just like this. So what I can do now is now the hatchet will be nowhere near what I am cutting. Okay? So now I just simply hold it like this, and I can either come down on it with the axe like this, and I've split wood, or I can put it in there and I can hold it just like this. Okay, and what I can do now, turn it around, see, it holds the wood really good because I put those flats in it. So what I can do now is I can take it like this, and I can hold the axe like this and just bring the whole thing down. And see, and it split the wood, and that way your hands are plenty far away from it. Okay. Sometimes you got to trim them a little bit to get them to work right. Get them to where they'll move around and you get a little bit more feel for them. Alright. This is one that was already split once. So let's put it in here. Set it right here. Just like this. Split wood, no problem. I still got all my fingers. Now one other wee little bit of information that shall keep your fingers safe. We went over the technique where you stab the double bit into the log and then you beat the wood across it. Then we took to where you can use a single bit if you create something like this. Okay. Now, if you don't want to make something like this, I have seen to where some people claim, you know, they baton a machete. Okay, if you take a piece of wood and you beat on the back side of a on a machete, you will baton it through a log. Okay, I've seen a few people that they say that you can baton an axe through wood. I personally don't think this is a very good idea. Okay, now reason being is because now this is all painted black, but the reason being is when you take an axe and you swing it down and you chop on wood, the pressure is going from the blade to the beginning of the eye of the axe, and then it's pushing against the wood. Okay, so the pressure is from here to here. You're swinging down chopping wood. Now, if you set this on wood and you start pounding on the back of this, and you get into the habit of pounding on it, some axes, these sides here are quite thin. And if you spend a lifetime of beating on the back of an axe like this, then you're going to wind up spreading this out. And you're going to lose the eye of your axe. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So try to avoid batoning on the back of an axe. Now, you can say that you can't drive tent pegs with this, but no, you can. Because when you're coming down hitting on the back of a tent peg or whatever, the pressure is going through the metal and straight to the wood. Okay, it's not getting distributed up the sides. Okay, so either way, you can swing this tool and beat on a tent peg. Pressure goes from here to the beginning of the wooden handle in the eye. If you're chopping, the pressure goes from here to here. But if you're literally pounding it through, the pressure will help spread out the eye. Okay, just a little tidbit of information there that could help save the life of your axe, especially if you have an old valuable axe. Okay. Now, one little tip on sharpening that we're fixing to go over. Gonna have to walk down to the creek to do this. And just to prove a point real quick, like as I was fixing to pack up and head down to the creek, see the axe over there by the tree? See how easy it is to identify with the orange? I want you also to look and see how easy it is to lose an axe in the leaves and the debris and the clutter on the ground. See how easy it is to see that? See how easy this is lost? Alright, a little bit about sharpening now. I think people may have seen in my past videos how I sharpen my machetes. Now, at home I have my whetstones, and I keep them soaking in oil. Okay. Now, the ones that I use out on the field, I don't carry them in oil, because those of you that have carried stones that have oil on them, you know good and well that they leak. There's almost no way of carrying one in oil. Okay, almost no way, because the oil leaks out and it gets on everything. So what I do for this, my other stones that I keep at home are in oil. What I do for my axe is what I do is I keep a puck. Okay. A round puck. I know you've seen these before. A lot of people have them. There's two different grits on them, and I keep it in a metal can. Now, the reason for the metal can is what I can do is I go down to the creek, and now after all, what this is it is a rock. Okay. So what I do with it is I can go down to the creek, and I'll soak it in the water. Let's turn it down here a little bit where you can see what I'm doing. Now what I'm doing is I can take this and I can soak this puck right here in the water. Maybe get a little bit on my axe, a little bit of lubrication to wash away the slurry. Now, if I don't want to stay at the creek, and see, as I'm dipping this in the creek, it's not going to hurt anything because this puck has never, ever, ever touched oil. Ever. Okay? And all this is pure water. And then when I get home, that's how I sharpen it while I'm out on the trail. And then when I get home, I'll put oil on this. Now, if I don't want to stay at the creek, or if I want to sharpen it at night, I simply fill up my can with water, and I put my puck in it, and then I carry it back to the camp. And then when I get done with it, sharpening at camp, I just pour the water out. I let the can dry out, and then that is how I carry my puck back home. All right, we're basically coming to a close on the axe video, but there's something that I want to bring up and I want to show, and it kind of sort of relates to this just a little bit because there is a use for it. Okay, now what it is in the video before this, I had the do-it-yourself El Cheapo Machete Sheath Survival Kit. Okay, and basically it was a small pouch that I made that fit around a machete sheath. Okay, now when you make something like that, start to finish, okay, and you show it at the end of the video, you haven't had time to work all the bugs out or put all the thought into it. Okay, so there was a whole bunch of comments on that, on the mesh bag on it. What do you do if it snags on things? Okay, well, I've thought about that, and it's amazing that the cure for that is actually a helpful idea for, and also for a use for axe, which is cool. I'm going to show you that, what the cure is for that. The machete sheath. Okay, now the concern was that this pouch right here would snag on things, okay, or things may come out. Now this is elastic on top. The more you put in it, the more it tightens up. Okay. Now, first off, the first cure is either avoid brambles, thorns, and vines, or you've got a machete with you. Chop your way through. Okay. Now the other logical approach is if you don't have a ton of stuff in your kit, now the other thing you can do is you can simply unhook it, okay, turn it around backwards like this, which also puts the buckles on the outside of your leg, okay, because before they were on the inside of the leg, and people were concerned about them rubbing the inside of my leg raw, and I guess that is possible. Okay, so what you do now, and that's another idea for this thing right here being strapped to the bottom instead of the top, so that you can move it around everywhere. Now what you've got, this is not a part of the original design, this is just something that I stumbled across. Now if it's inside out, you're not going to be snagging your mesh bag, your kit will be on the inside. And I got to thinking, you know, you could put your Mora right in there. But then I got to thinking, you know, a lot of times when you're using an axe, you have to set down the axe for a minute. And sometimes when you set it down and you've got like both hands full over here doing something, well, instead of setting it down, now you have a place that you can put your axe while your hands are busy. You know, whether it's a pack axe or a hatchet, it doesn't matter. Let's say that I'm using this for a while. I need to set it down instead of leaning it up against my leg and having it fall over to where I got to reach over. I've got it right here where I can use it. So isn't that neat? And I also added another loop to it right here. I added an extra loop, that way I could put a carabiner on it and I could attach it up to my belt loop right here. I think I've got one on the inside, to where I don't even have to have this thing. I could connect both of these to belt loops. So it's a work in progress. Alright, so this is pretty much the end of the video here. Hope you learned some good stuff about axes. Hope you learned some things you can use. I had a lot of fun with it. Maybe there's a couple of tricks in there you've never seen before. Who knows? Maybe you know more than me about axes. But this is what I've learned over the years. And it's a funny thing, on the drive up here, I was actually thinking to myself, I don't know why, but there was just something funny that popped into my head. And these are the words I'm going to leave you with, okay? Remember that commercial where you've got the old man on the bus and he says, it's your money, use it when you want to. I don't know why, but it just kind of, what philosophy is ringing true on this video is, it's your fingers, why not keep them? So, I hope you and your axe get along good, and hope you enjoyed it, and I shall see you in the next one.